So yeah, like I was saying, like yeah, I guess the last time I saw you was on the train at SEPTA, on like a late train back into the city, and then I feel like I ran into a couple times at Pumpernicks, back in the day,
That's right, pumpernicks.
and
That was a long time ago. That was like 10 years ago.
yeah, I feel like so they were like the only place, one of the only places in Montgomeryville where you could get takeout beer, like
Oh yeah, that's right.
early in the morning. So if you were like going to a Phillies tailgate, which I think was when I saw you, I was like going to a Phillies tailgate and I needed beer, so I popped in there to get beer at like 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think I don't remember when we opened, like seven or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Um, but yeah, since then, like other than that, like I know you had a daughter, and I hadn't really seen you too much around. You're not like big on social media or anything. You famously have like a picture with like a nice sports car, and that's like all that I've I've seen of you.
Waiting for a while, I guess. I mean, I don't know. Um, Actually, when I saw you on the train, I was, up to no good. At the time, I was in a bad place in my life. So, I just got my shit together. So yeah, I wasn't open really about it then. Obviously, I was in my shit. Um, but yeah, I had a daughter. I was in the middle of addiction and it was pretty rough. And I don't know, I just woke up one day. Like, actually, I was like forced to go into rehab. And I just was going to please people. And I just, I, this overwhelming feeling of this is it. And I got clean and I moved on with my life. And I'm doing really good now. I'm a few years in and, you know, I'm doing really good.
I had no
So,
idea. Yeah, I had no idea. Of course, that's how it is, right? You never know. People are really good at hiding it a lot of times. And of course, not knowing you, I wouldn't, have an idea what that would look like in the first place.
so that's what I'm saying. I was like in hiding, like nobody knew. Like I wouldn't even tell my family, but like my immediate family obviously knew because I put them through so much hell. Um, but yeah, now I'm like a single mom and I live that mom life.
That's awesome.
So
Congratulations on that, then, and your sobriety.
thanks. It took me like a while to actually say something on social media. Like I have some clean time, you know,
Yeah.
really old school Egyptian family. So it was like I was the oddball. And it was what happens in the house stays in the house kind of thing. So they didn't want all their little church friends to find out. And I came to a point where I was like, fuck this. I'm fucking proud of myself. And I'm gonna tell my story. So, I'm not ashamed of it. It's just something I went through in my life. So
Yeah. I mean, you see, it's wild just how many people from Wissahickon that we see kind of telling similar stories. I mean, I can like count on two hands just the amount of people on Facebook and Instagram that are kind of talking about their sobriety, their struggles, and it's something that I thought about a lot growing up. I thought about a lot like in my 20s and my 30s when I would think back to high school and middle school. And one of the reasons why I started the podcast was because I felt so disconnected from some of the things that would happen in school, because I wasn't experienced in those worlds: sex, drugs, parties, drinking. I just didn't really, I was never invited to those parties. I didn't hang with any people that were in those worlds. None of my friends, all my friends were pretty close, like with their parents, and our parents knew each other, and we couldn't really deviate out of that group, or else someone would probably find out. And I think that was embedded in me. And so because of that, I just always kind of stayed in this group and never really branched out until college, when I didn't know anyone anymore and I had to make new friends and start over. But one of the things that when I look back is like, man, the sex, the drugs, growing up seemed like so advanced for anything that I was prepared for.
I always had like long-term relationships since I was like 16. But, you know, I think like being in the family setting that I was in, I'm not blaming my family, not one bit. It was hard to make friends because I wasn't allowed to do the things that other kids were allowed to do. So when I was old enough, I was like, I want to experience everything. And I just went crazy, you know? So like while I had friends in school, but like I was a friend hopper. Like I didn't have like really close friends. Like I hung out with everybody at different periods of my life. So
Where did
I don't know.
you when did you come into Wissahickon?
Again, I was born in Philly, and we moved to Bluebell when I was like 5 or 6, I think, like 6.
Okay.
So I went to Stony Creek when I was in elementary school.
Who were you hanging out
So,
with then? Like as a kid, like growing up before you get into like high school?
oh gosh, Stony Creek. I think I hung out with. I feel like Kim Burkowski and Annetta Piatek, and I don't remember who else. I just remember going to like Kim's pool, you know, when we were younger. Um, yeah.
What were,
But it was like always people, my mom would agree to letting me go over there too. Like I wasn't allowed to hang out with a lot of people.
what was that
So
based on?
I don't know. Like my mom's really like old school religious, straight from Egypt. You know, they're Orthodox. So they're like, I don't know. I don't know if it was based on their like religion or, you know, their family backgrounds. Like, I don't know. I
You know what?
couldn't even tell you.
You know what's interesting is I talked to Maria Rowe Gigliotti, and
Hmm.
her parents are from Italy,
Hmm.
and very similar. You were friends with her?
In high school, yeah.
Yeah, she told a very similar kind of story of, she went to Catholic school in the beginning, so she didn't come in until high school, but like her and Elisa, their family were just kind of like strict and very protective, and they almost had to get permission and approval to be able to like add someone new to their friend group, and they would have to meet their parents. And she talks about like Susie Mullet having to come in and meet her mom before they could like hang out.
Parents liked Maria's mom and Stefania's parents. You remember Stefania Messina, because they were Italian and they had like very similar backgrounds. So, you know, I was allowed to hang out with them. But when I got to high school, I feel like I didn't, because I was just tired of it, I guess. I don't know. I rebelled really bad. Um,
What does rebelling look like versus like who you were prior to that?
I was sneaking out the house, like, I don't know, just doing dumb shit. I I don't know. I didn't want to do my schoolwork. I didn't want to do nothing that they wanted me to do. Whatever mom and dad said to do, I did the opposite, you know. Uh, I mean, I remember my senior year pulling up, um, and I wasn't into like drugs like that until my late 20s. Um, But I remember pulling up and uh, leaving right away with people to like go smoke a blunt or whatever. Let's go to the shore for the day, or let's go do this for the day. Or like I graduated because of fake doctor's notes.
When you got to middle school, was there any like, for me, when I got to middle school, I felt like it was so different with the pods. I feel like every year you're trying to make new friends and start over again. You talked about Kim Borkowski and having like kind of a couple friends in elementary school, but once you're going to middle school, it's really kind of like you've got to like make your crew now at that point.
I feel like middle school I more hung out with who did I hang out with in middle? I think Ashley McLaughlin for a little bit. I don't remember who, like I remember it obviously, but I don't remember who I was hanging out with because honestly, like through middle school and high school, every weekend, like I went to Philly. I spent the weekend in Philly with a girl who was also Egyptian, very similar to me. My parents knew her parents, kind of thing. So I was allowed to go there every weekend, and I don't know, I wasn't in like any or anything, so I had nothing to do, so I would go down there every weekend. I don't really remember hanging out with too many people in middle school. Um,
When you talk about Egyptian, I didn't know any Egyptians until you and I think Aziza, right?
that's right. I hung out with Aziza. Yeah, her dad's Egyptian.
Okay. What is that? I don't know. Can you tell me a little bit about like just Egyptian culture, world, family style? I really still know nothing.
It's different. Like my it's different. Like I feel like they're very judgmental. I don't know. It's just different. They're very old school. Even from religion to religion, if you know, I don't want to, it's hard to speak about and not talk shit about. And I don't know, they're just different. Like I'm really close to my family now, but it took me a long time to get there. Um, I don't know, it's just different. Like the Orthodox and Muslim thing there is crazy and like go home, do your schoolwork, take the criticism, like, and go to college and do what you're supposed to do. That's like their mentality kind of thing. They wanted me to marry an Egyptian guy, like
Oh.
somebody, yeah. I was like, no way. It's just old school like that, you know?
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you see that for yourself growing up, like as you're like a preteen, and you're kind of you're now like really into your family lifestyle. You see how it goes. Were you? I mean, you say like you didn't want to marry an Egyptian man, but like beyond that, were you just like, as far as like the go to school aspect and all that, were you just like, did you know then that this was not a path for you that you wanted to follow, that your family was laying out?
I knew like that I wanted I wanted to be successful, but like I wanted to be different. I wanted to be um I didn't want to raise my kids the way they raised theirs.
When you were like a kid, what did you what were you into? Were you into like anything that you thought, like, when we're kids, we grab onto like little things and we think, oh, maybe I want to do this, or I want to do that, or like I'm watching Nickelodeon, they're giving out trips to space camp, and I'm like, I want to be an astronaut because there's no gravity and I want to float around, and like that's as big as I could think. Was there anything that you grew up that you thought, I want to do this as a grown up?
The thing I could tell you that I really wanted to be when I grew up type thing was like a doctor or a nurse because it was embedded in my head. Like you should be a doctor when you grow up kind of thing. And that's what I wanted to do. I really wanted to be a doctor. And then I grew up a little bit and I was like, I don't want to stay in school for 8 more years. And I was like, I'll be a nurse. And I finished all my prereqs for nursing and then I dropped out.
So then when you're like in school, I know you're by the end you're like leaving classes or not going at all, but was there anything that you thought you were good at, or a teacher that you thought like, oh, like I like this English teacher, this, like, did you have a favorite teacher or a favorite class or something you thought was like kind of hitting for you?
Science pretty interesting, but there was nothing that, like, I still don't know what I want to do with my life, and I'm going to be 39 this week. Like, I don't I don't know what I want to do with my life still. I don't I I'm good at I'm a people person type thing, like, but there's nothing in particular that I'm like, oh, I'm really good at this. But that's like my shit, you know what I mean? Like, it's my people on the outside looking in see something different than what you see type. Um,
What do you think people see when from the outside?
I don't know.
Interesting. I think when I thought it, like, I was maybe a little bit scared because I thought, like, you had like the curly wet hair, and that was like very like intimidating.
I I got that a lot. I got that a lot. And people, even today, they're like, when I first met you, I thought you were a bitch. And
I
I'm
didn't say
like,
that.
well, even people at work, they're like, we're very intimidated by you when we first meet you. I get that a lot. I don't I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the way I carry myself, but in high school I did like to fight people. I would fight boys in school.
Well, how does that happen?
I don't know. I was silly but aggressive. So like I would beat them up just to like play. Um, but
But you're like throwing punches, punching in the face with a guy.
but there was a kid, I feel so bad that I won't say his name, but every day after we got off the bus, I would beat him up. But of course, he wouldn't hit me back. I'm a girl. He wasn't hitting me back, but I was just playing with him. But like every day, I'd be like, come on, I'm gonna fight you. I'm gonna beat your ass. I was just bad.
Yeah, and while you're beating this kid's ass, are other people like around, like, yeah, get him, Monica? Like, was it a thing?
I think they would egg me on. They would just laugh.
It's funny because like I can remember like being told, like my parents telling me, like I fought a lot, like early on, elementary school, middle school. I got in a lot of fights, a lot of scuffles, a lot of detentions, a few suspensions. And I always remember that pressure of like a conflict, or anyone knowing that you've got like any type of an issue, whether it's at this point it's going to be a fight or not, and people always like egging you on or making you feel like you've got to be tough and you can't let people step on you, or this is like when I think about like now as an adult, I almost go like, who cares? Or you can talk to that person or just remove that person from your life, right? So you don't even deal with that conflict. And I remember my parents telling me like, you can't let other people dictate your shit and tell you what to do, and because look who's in trouble. And that used to happen to me all the time in such a frustrating way where it's like, I don't get it. Everyone's saying I should fight, and then I fight and I get in trouble. This makes no sense.
Definitely. I, I like I belonged, because I had uh, saying one thing, and then I had my friends saying another thing, and I had the school saying another thing, and like I think I was like a confused child, just trying to make everybody happy, other than myself. Like I didn't know what I wanted, who I was. I was just a lost child kind of thing. And it showed in my person, like not in my personality, but in my actions. I did dumb shit to fit in different places.
You dated in high school?
From Norristown, throughout high school. Um, um, from the time I think I was in like 10th grade until I was like 20, I dated.
Wow, that's like a marriage.
It's in long-term relationships, even after high school. I don't know.
How do you meet a guy from Norristown?
You know what? Lisa Bruce. Lisa Bruce, the guy she's still with, uh, it was his friend. And we were hanging out, and I guess, I met this guy, and
He's older?
either the same age as me or a year older.
Okay. What's the dating world like then for you? I did not date, and part of my hesitation was like this fear of like, where am I going to take a girl? I never knew, and like I wasn't smooth enough to like, and I didn't have like a relationship to have like the come over to my house type of. You're like, that's a lot of people are like, well, no, like you date maybe, but then it's just like come over to my house, or like we just hang out at someone's house if the parents were comfortable. I never felt comfortable like bringing that around like my mom, or like still not. and, and like I so what do you do when you're dating at that young of an age? Where were you?
Well, I don't know. Dating for me, I guess at that time when I was in high school, it was just like, Mom, I'm dating this guy, whether you like it or not, type of thing. Um, because all the guys that I was into prior to him, I could never bring around my parents. And it was nothing like, nothing serious, but yeah. I still hide my relationships from my parents. you know, they're just, like I said, they're a little bit more judgmental than me. And they want the best for me, though. It's nothing, they're judgmental because they want the best for me. Like that, nobody's good enough for their baby type thing.
Did you work in high school?
So when I was 14, I worked at My Favorite Muffin and Bagel in Bluebell. Do you remember that place? It was across from the old Wawa.
Yeah, that
Remember
sounds
on
really
202?
familiar.
It was like, it's now like a Mexican place or something like that.
Yeah, El Serape or something.
El Serape, yes. Yes. So I worked there when I was 14. I worked at Wawa a little bit when I was 16.
Wawa crew.
Uh, oh, that's right. I heard you worked at Wawa,
I was
but
Mr.
you worked at the
Wawa.
one in Springhouse, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So did you do what kind of, so you're doing the muffin place and then Wawa, are you doing like early mornings or are you doing late night shifts?
I was doing nights and weekends.
Oh. Were you doing mornings though on the weekends for like a muffin place? Don't you have to like, isn't that like a 7 a.m. like type of thing? Or
Yeah. In Wawa, it was 7 a.m. I remember I was always late. Always late.
same.
But,
I'd roll in about like 7:15.
yes, me too. I think that was the problem why I left, because I walked in like 15 minutes late, and I had gotten a Christina Catano. Remember her? I got
Mm-hmm.
her a job at Wawa with me. And we both walked in, and I think what the supervisor called me like a bitch or something like that. And I went off and I walked out.
He's lucky you didn't fight him.
Right. Oh my God. I'm so embarrassed by that. It's so bad. It's so embarrassing that I acted like that.
Um, I don't know. I used to have like the occasional like dust up with girls where like girls were like I'd get in like an argument or something, and some girl would be like, I'm gonna punch him in his face, and you're just like, I can tell you, as like a guy, that is like the worst feeling to like have to let a girl hit you.
I feel so bad for this kid. I mean, he's fine, obviously, but
He's recovered. Do you have brothers and sisters?
a sister, they're both older than me.
Older brother and an older
So
sister. How much older?
my older than me, and my sister's 5 years older than me.
How much older is your brother?
8.
8 years older. Okay.
Yeah.
So wow, that's a long difference. So you weren't in school with any of your relatives at all, because they're all one to two schools ahead of you by the time you guys move here to Wissahickon.
So I remember being a senior in high school and my sister having her first wedding, like getting married when I was a senior in high school. An annoying kid that had to hang out with her because my mom said so, and she beat me up a lot. Maybe that's why I was beating up other kids. Maybe.
That's a breakthrough. We just made a breakthrough.
It is a breakthrough. And then my brother was so much older, I was just the baby. I was the baby that was adopted because I was the only one with like light skin and green eyes, and yeah.
Oh, really?
So they used to tell me I was adopted when I was little.
So what are they, dark skin, brown eyes?
I mean, they're darker than me and they have brown eyes, yeah.
So what's funny is because I don't know any other Egyptians. Like, you were what I like assumed all Egyptians like look. I like they all have like these really like pretty light eyes and like this kind of golden skin. And Aziza was pretty light skin, so I'm just like, oh, this is just like Egyptians look like this. I never would have known.
That's great, but no, no, they're all like. It's very different if you have blue or green eyes and you're, Middle Eastern.
When you're going through like school, was there anyone to kind of like try and like you mentioned like the truancy and stuff, but was there ever any like type of like real effort to try and like rein you in? I asked that because with me, in school, I wasn't having truancy issues. I had a little bit of issues senior year, but I used to come to school late every single day and fill out an excuse lateness form until I overused latenesses, and I had so many latenesses that they were going to tell me that I was going to start being truant if I was late anymore. So I started instead of coming to school on time, I would just start not checking in and taking an absence. But I would come to class. So I was doing the work and I would come to class. I just wouldn't make homeroom because I didn't roll into like 7:58. So I would just have these absences and fill out like an excuse absence form when I ran out of latenesses. And then they would say like they would come looking for me because they would check me for all my classes and I would be present. But I wasn't present in school in the beginning of the day. So they come find me in calculus in 8th period and they're like, oh, how come you're here if you're marked absent? And it's like, well, because I can't take a lateness.
You beat the system.
That's a little life hack for you kids out there if anyone's listening. But, for me, like I always wished there was a point where like, college is starting to come up. We're 16, we're 17. People that I knew were like talking about college. And I had zero path. I thought maybe I would like do theater or something like that in college, but I didn't have like outstanding grades. I didn't have, outside of doing musicals and stuff and chorus, I didn't really have like extracurricular activities. I did not stand out to a college, nor did I get my shit in gear senior year to like make it look like I did. Bianca, who I just talked to, talked about like just joining a couple clubs because she thought it would be like good on her transcript for college. And I never even had that type of like guidance or anything. Did anyone ever try and just kind of like, hey, Monica, here we are, you're 16, 17, you're coming in your senior year. Here's something you should look at. Did anyone do that with you?
My counselor did. But I was kind of like you. You know what I mean? Just, skating through, never did. I mean, I did okay. I just wasn't like, I didn't go above and beyond for anything. I didn't have really great grades. I didn't get involved. But again, I mean, I had the guidance from my counselor, but I didn't have the guidance from my peers or my family. So I don't think I knew any better, and my poor parents didn't know any better. They came to this country, with shit. They didn't know. They think the kids are going to be raised the same way as they would in a different country, but with better opportunities type thing. And that's just not what it was.
Was there anything like where you, even if you didn't know how or anything, were you ever like, oh, maybe I could just go to this school? Was there a college or anything that you thought I could go do that? Were you still in the back of your mind, was like being a doctor or a nurse still kind of in your head, like maybe I could go do that?
Like, I friends that I knew of were going to college, and I went to Montco, but like I think in my head I wanted to go to Temple or Westchester. And I think that was like, once I finish with Montco, I'm going to go to Temple or Westchester. And I just never got that far. But those are, I feel like, the schools that are surrounded us and, what we know, other than like Penn State.
Yeah, Monco also made it really easy for those transfers because they would tell you about the core transfer, where if you just come here and do the 2 years and you take those classes, then you can go right to the other college without missing any time. And all those state schools, they had those relationships with Westchester, Temple, probably Penn State. I know I used it for Temple.
But I just wasn't interested. I mean, I was interested. I wanted to. I just, I guess, grounded enough to do the things back then that I wanted to do. I thought it was all going to come so easy, I think. I wanted it, but I didn't want to work for it.
I'm still that way at times. You don't know what you don't know, and I think I fumbled my way through college. I think about all these different stations of like times that from Montgo and I did 2.5 years to get my associates because like you start getting to what I thought was the end, and it's like, hey, you still got like 13 credits. You can't graduate this semester. And you're like, oh, I can't. Like, no, you're gonna have to take a whole nother semester. Now it's like, okay, I'm not going to Temple in the fall of my 2 years. I'm going to be going in the spring of my 2.5 years, and going through and running out of classes at Temple, and they're like, hey, you're out of, like, you've taken all of your electives in your major. You've got to start taking like other classes now, not just film. And it's like, oh, okay, how do I do that? And I did a senior thesis for film and not knowing what I'm doing, and I'm like 3 months from graduation and I haven't even like shot any film yet. And it's like, you got to start doing these things like every step along the way. I fumbled, and I don't know how I made it through, but all that to say that I think it's sometimes just kind of accidental, and it's like if you just put yourself in the place to stay there and do it, you maybe make it through.
We fumble through life no matter how old you are or everything's a learning process, so it's not surprising. But you made it. At least you made it.
I made it. I made it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I did film, right? So my friends and I, we kind of like come out of this and we all just go, what did we pay for? We kind of wish we had more. I don't know. And I know it's like grass is greener type of thing. Like it's easy to say when you do it, but we look at it kind of like we paid for just kind of like this institutional thing that didn't really benefit us in it. Like I don't feel necessarily. I know everyone says you got to have the college degree, but now it's like when you have the college degree and then you're looking for other jobs, it's like, well, you've got to have a master's. And I just go, well, what did I do all that for before? It's like the college degree is kind of obsolete. While it's mandatory for stuff, it doesn't really help you get anywhere advanced, I find, at least in what I do.
Because I've had this discussion with so many people that like you really need a master's degree to do anything in the field you want to be in. Honestly, like I always look at other jobs and I'm a server. I've served forever. I've bartended forever. Like it's just, what I've been doing for a long time. And I've looked at other jobs, like even when I did go to a tech school, I got my medical assistant. I was going to go back for sonography to do ultrasound. And like, I still make more money serving tables than I would in that field. So like, people sleep on it a lot and think, oh, you're a server and everything like that. Like, yeah, I bust my ass, don't get me wrong, but I work in the mornings and I have my daughter at night and, it works for me as of right now. Do I want to do more? Yeah, fucking right, I want to do more. But I'm not getting a master's degree. That's for damn fucking sure. I'm not getting a master's degree. It's just not something I'm interested in at all. So for the time being, this is working for me.
It's funny how like the American education system is so just like it's so embedded in our world as if it's a must, but like it's not a one size fits all for everyone's life, and I don't know how to say it other than it's like it's fucked up that so many people grew up with like these insecurities about college, career, whereas I think your parents came here, but for people that grew up in America in the 50s, 60s, 70s, a lot of these jobs that we're kind of like you're almost like shamed of, like, if you don't go to college you're going to end up doing blank is what so many people made a living for and supported their family for decades and decades in the country. And now it's kind of like at some point, and I don't know if this is like the 80s and Wall Street and all that stuff, but at some point it just almost became like an impossibility of like, you're not going to go to college. And I don't know, like unless you grew up with money and you were going to travel, it was just like it felt so frowned upon, especially in high school, the senior year. I've told this story before, but like I remember just being so kind of embarrassed about not really having a plan when people would ask me at the end of the year, "What are you doing?" They're signing your yearbook and good luck doing. Where are you going? What are you doing? And you're just like, not sure. Probably going to Monaco. Undecided. And they're all like, "Cool. Good luck in whatever you do." And it's just, you're just kind of like,
It still is frowned upon to this day, and it's kind of sad, but like it's our culture. It's what's embedded in our minds. It's people think this is you're supposed to live life a certain way and you're supposed to do things a certain way, and not everybody lives that way. And some people make it work and some people don't. It's your choice. And I learned to make it work for me. It's I'm okay
Yeah.
with what I do for now. For now.
No,
So
and that's what you said. Like it's for you, your choice. And when I say like one size fits all, that's exactly it. It's like, you know what? There are other things that maybe I want to do. Maybe I am self aware, but I'm not ashamed of what I'm doing. I like what I'm doing. It pays for the lifestyle that I want. And I want to get something under me before I move on to another step that that I'm figuring out.
exactly. And you know what? It took me a long time to be okay with it. I think like being in recovery taught me a lot of um, uh, and being grateful and uh, loving what you do in yourself. You know, I'm just so like I have such a positive outlook on life now. It's just different. It's just, you know, my parents still hate what I do, but they don't complain anymore. You know why? Because I pay my bills, I take care of my daughter. You know, I have her in extracurricular stuff. You know, I have a car, I have all that stuff. So they can't complain anymore. The only thing I'm lacking to them is a husband, but I don't care. You know, I'm okay with that.
Strict or not, old school or not, Monica, all of our parents are giving us that situation, no
I'm
matter where we are.
sure.
Yeah, trust me.
I'm
Trust me.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that from the mom very often.
Yeah, right? Like, what do you want me to do? I'm not just going to marry anybody, you know? So, you know, some of the morals and values they instilled in me are still in me. So, allow me to live with those morals and values, you know, and understand that I know what I'm doing somewhat. Somewhat.
See,
So,
I'm the opposite in that I felt like I saw my parents like have a bad marriage. And so I know those signs that I just go, well, I don't want to just do that. I want to really be sure here and not just get into something and, not think it through.
and listen, and it's okay. That's okay. Like for me, um, I was in some pretty long-term relationships that I really thought at one point or another I thought were going to work out, but absolutely did not, you know, and for different reasons. But we live and we learn, and from those experiences, now I know what I want, and I'm not going to just settle because they want me to settle. Fuck that shit. Like, I'm not here to make you happy. I'm here to make myself happy. So,
Yes.
you know.
During school, did you were you into any like music, albums, artists that were like, part of your vibe during the 90s?
Music was the best. I feel like I listened. I definitely was like an R&B and hip hop person. Um, I listened to a lot of different things. From like Jay-Z to Mariah Carey to who else was around back then? Whitney Houston. Method Man. I loved Method Man when I was younger.
Meth and Mary.
Mary, love Mary J. I actually went to a concert and saw her and Jay-Z in a concert.
I went to a
Um,
Jay-Z Mary J. Was it the one where R. Kelly got kicked off?
no. R.
Oh,
Kelly got kicked off?
no. So I went to a show. It was Jay-Z and Friends. And it was originally supposed to be the Best of Both Worlds tour. But this was after the original R. Kelly stuff, and they had done a second album together. And they were on tour.
The Best of Both Worlds.
Best of Both Worlds, yes.
I
But then
love that album. Yeah.
so that first album came out right before the R. Kelly stuff hit. The R. Kelly news came out. Then it kind of like everyone was like, we don't really care. So Jay-Z doubled down and was like, let's do another album. So they did a second album a year or two later, and then they did a tour. And R. Kelly, like after 3 or 4 dates, was like running off stage claiming that people had guns in the crowd, and like he was, I don't know, just very paranoid. And at Madison Square Garden, this is a ridiculous story. At Madison Square Garden, it's like 2004. R. Kelly, they were performing. It's like the third, fourth, fifth show of the tour, and R. Kelly runs off stage early, and he's like, "They got guns in there." And Jay-Z's like, "Bro, it's post 9/11. No one's in Madison Square Garden brandishing guns. Like, you're out of your mind." So he like tried to like go back. He's like, "Oh, I'm going back out." And Jay-Z's like, "You know what? This is not working. You're not going out on stage." And he had Tata, his guy, pepper spray R. Kelly backstage at Madison Square Garden.
Insane.
And they removed R. Kelly from the show, and Jay-Z gets on the phone. He's like, Usher, where you at? Mary, where you at? Diddy, could you come out here? Busta, where are you? And they all came to Madison Square Garden and performed that night with Jay-Z. And Jay-Z then took all those people and went on the rest of the tour together instead of R. Kelly, and just took all these people. So I saw Jay-Z, like, and the set that would have been Jay-Z and R. Kelly, where like they're performing together, they changed it and subbed in Mary J. Blige. So like they came out in like these white buses and matching gear, and they did like their 3 or 4 songs together. And then Jay-Z would leave, and Mary does like 25 minutes on her own, you know, of I'm going down, and just like killing it. So that was my Jay-Z Mary show.
Yeah, mine was I actually think I have a T-shirt from it still. I think it was around 2006 or 2007, but it was in Philly. I think it was at like the Wells Fargo Center or something like that. But Mary J was on that stage pretty much the whole time. And it was cool because it was such a different crowd. It was like old folks and young folks, you know. But that's one of my favorite concerts. I used to love going to concerts when I was in my 20s. That was my thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that was when I started in my 20s. I never went like really. I went to one concert as a teenager in high school with my dad, and then not until college did I start like going to concerts regularly.
My first one was like the Up in Smoke tour with Dr. Dre and Eminem. And Snoop Dogg.
I've never gone, but I watch the live DVD recording of it. Like that's when I'm partying with my friends up in Stamford, Connecticut, where I used to live. That would be like our end of the night thing. We come back to the house and put that on the TV and fall asleep to that. That's the best show that ever existed in hip hop.
Yeah, I remember that. That was my first one.
Wow. Are you thinking like,
yeah,
they all must be like this?
Yeah, right. It was crazy. It was insanity. I just remember my boyfriend at the time throwing Snoop Dogg a blunt up on stage, and him picking it up like good looking out, hit it and throw it back out. It was pretty insane. But it was fun. I mean, we were young. I was like 19, 18, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was
a long time ago.
It was a crazy show because Eminem was like the #1 artist in the country, had the #1 album with the Marshall Mathers LP, and he's like the opening act.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love that show so much. Is it the Chronic?
You remember it more than me. Like
I watched it probably about I watched it this summer. I definitely watched it this summer. You're never going to see. Yeah, so I reminisce about like certain musical artists that I'm never, ever going to get to see, right? Like Whitney Houston. I'll sometimes get in a Whitney Houston bag, and I'll be like, I am never going to get to see her perform these songs, like these songs that I grew up on. Michael Jackson, same way. There's certain artists that I just go, fuck, I missed the boat. And getting to see again, he wasn't sober, but this, and so he doesn't do a lot of these songs anymore. Now that he's sober, but Eminem, a lot of his content was so disturbing. He's removed a lot of that from like his repertoire, and so the fact I'm never going to get that Eminem with that Dr. Dre and that Snoop Dogg and that Ice Cube, like, and Nate Dogg and Warren G, like, you're never going to get that group of people in their absolute fucking prime together again in a concert.
I know.
Well, then once you left high school, do you feel like I don't know, how did your life change? I guess once you left Wissahickon, you're now going to Monco. You're kind of out of that everyday schedule. You're going for you think you're going to be going for nursing. You think you're like on that path. How does your life kind of change for you as you start entering your 20s?
I went to Montco. I remember working as a photographer at Picture People, like my senior year in high school. And I got promoted there pretty fast, and I was doing that for a little bit. And then I went to K Jewelers, and I got promoted there really fast. And like, I thought that like working was way more important than like going to school. And I think I just like embedded myself in work and my boyfriend. Like, that was my life. Work and boyfriend. We did whatever we wanted, Dorney Park, beach. I mean, I just was trying to, and then when I was 20, I got a house with my sister and two other girls, and that was fun. I think that's when the actual partying maybe begun. I don't know.
The 20s of freedom. But also, you talked about like kind of being, I don't know, strict parents, and you didn't really party that much, contrary to your bad girl persona, and leaving to smoke blunts, during school. But like, maybe this is like your breakout. I think a lot of people do that, right? They kind of break out of freedom when they're not in the house.
I didn't even actually tell my mom that I was moving out because I was so scared to tell her. I literally packed a bag and went to this new house. And then when she found out that my sister was living with me, she was okay with it. But prior to that, she just was not having it because, you're supposed to stay in your parents' house until you get married, and then on with your husband and your family. So it was like a big thing. I don't know.
Yeah, that's old school.
I was still like responsible, I guess.
Did you ever go to Egypt?
Oh, when I was younger, we used to spend summers there.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's that like?
It's a whole different culture, bro. It's crazy. It was cool because at one point before my cousin moved up here, he was a tour guide in Egypt. So he would take us around everywhere. I mean, every time we went, we would go to the pyramids, but he would take us different places like the Cairo Museum, the Cairo Tower. It was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. It's definitely a whole different world. It's crazy.
I talked to Aneta Piatek a few months ago, and she came from Poland. Her her parents, immigrants. She was an immigrant. She came here when she was like 2. And she talked about going back to Poland as a teenager for the summers and visiting, and feeling like she was like the cool kid when she would go back there because of everything that you just have from American culture and seeing what they don't have. Similar?
I remember having like the cassette tape and the headphones and playing Nas all the time, right? And and then being so like into this little cassette tape thing that I would carry around everywhere. And it's like their windows were like shutters. You know what I mean? Like clay buildings. Unless you lived in like a mansion, that's how it was. I remember hanging my clothes up to dry out of the window and people stealing my jeans overnight. Like jeans is a big thing over there.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. Like little stuff. Like my parents would send over like deodorant and shampoo and conditioner and like, you know, because it's just different there. Like that kind of stuff there is like expensive, or like not everybody can afford it, or it's harder to get, whereas up here it's like it's just shampoo and conditioner, like, you know, it's deodorant.
Yeah, 99 cents a bottle, you know.
Right, like, you know. So back then, I think in the 90s, every dollar was like 3.5 pounds there. Now, I mean, the dollar's like 17 pounds, but it was like you had so much money if you went there with a little bit of money. So, yeah.
Can you talk about just making it to this side of your sobriety now, to where
Oh, yeah, sure. Absolutely. So like, I guess for me, I'll tell you, like it started with oxys. You know, I was really into the oxys at one point, and then they changed the oxys. And at this point of my life, I'm with a guy in an 8-year, you know, we spent 8 years together. Like I was in a long-term relationship with this guy, and he sold drugs, and I thought it was cool. And, you know, I was really against that type of shit. And one day I saw him high and I flipped out on him, but I saw the way he was, so I was like, let me try it. So I tried it, and from oxys and went to perks, and from perks it just fucking went to dope, and it was crazy. It took me down a crazy like path. My first year in recovery, I will say that I was in a relationship with a guy. We lived together. He was using, he was abusive. And I didn't know it at first. I didn't know that he was even an addict at first. I didn't know like he was into that stuff at first. And we quickly moved in together because I wanted out of recovery houses. I was like managing recovery houses at the time. I wanted out of a recovery house, and we moved in together, and my daughter was with my parents at this time. I spent her 3rd birthday in rehab. He was a great guy until he started using, and he would get abusive, and I just stuck through it. I didn't give a fuck. Like I was just like, I at that point I was like, I have to get rid of this guy. I wasn't really sure how at the time, but I knew I wanted to stay clean, and I just knew there were things that I had to do. So it finally came to a point where I was able to call the cops and get him removed from the apartment. And at this time, okay, so at 3 months sober, I bought a car. And I started managing recovery houses. And that lasted a few months. And then I got an apartment at 6 months with him. And then once once what's it called? COVID hit.
Hmm.
My daughter didn't have school. She wasn't going to the pre-K anymore. She came and lived with us in this 1-bedroom apartment, right? It wasn't meant for her to stay, but she did, which was great.
Mm-hmm.
And the one time he hit me in front of my daughter, and I think that was my outlet because I knew I wanted out. I just didn't know how. And he hit me, and I've never ever been in an abusive relationship. I don't know shit about it, and I just was like, "What the fuck?" And I called the cops, and I spent the night at my parents' house, and then I came back the next day, and it's been me and her ever since. So yeah, now I have a house. You know, I rent it, but it's mine. I can do whatever I want to it. I got promoted at work. Now I have my daughter in, like, gymnastics and dance, and I'm just, positive. And
What's that like now? Like now that you're on this other side and you've been sober and you've got your daughter, and what's that like now being like the single mom and being clear and kind of being able to truly enjoy it?
it's totally different. It's a totally different world, but I love it.
Yeah.
Um, we're like, we're super close. She talks just like me. It's scary, it's so scary. Um, and it's just, it's cool to be this close to a human being, and she has my back through everything, and I make sure we're busy and we study together. And this is probably the longest that I've sat down in a really long time. Like, I went on vacation with her this summer, just me and her. It's always just me and her now. And I'm okay with that. Like, I don't bring guys around her anymore. Like, I date, but I don't, I'll never bring a guy around her unless I'm like really sure.
Yeah.
Like I said, every experience is a lesson, and that's just how I view things now. It's just all life lessons. And, you know, and like, I'm blessed to be able to do the things that I do now. Like, I'm super grateful. To other people, it doesn't seem like much, you know what I mean? But to me, it's a big deal. Because I I had nothing a few years ago. I didn't have shit, and I didn't get any help to get where I'm at now. And I did it in such a small amount of time. So it's like a big fucking deal for me. Um,
You could tell the pride that you have, like, and as you're like got that car back and got a place and keeping this job, and somehow you kept this job and like being able to move through it. Like, you can see like you have pride in these kind of benchmarks that again, I don't know much about addiction, just people that I've talked to, but I guess like one of the things that I've always that's very common when people are telling stories, or the ability to say that they've got something of their own, that they're holding on to things and that they're building and they're doing it on their own. Because I think the impression that they get, especially when you talk about disappointing people around you, and people don't think you're ever going to be able to do anything. People feel like they can't count on you, and then to be able to prove that you can do things, you are accountable, you're responsible, you can have your daughter back, you can pay your bills, like, you know what I mean? That it's such a big step, because for so long people didn't see that in someone battling addiction.
uh, it's definitely, it's something to be proud of. And people do rely on me now, and and it's uh, my family can count on me now, and then they can call me and just talk to me instead of calling me to make sure I'm still alive. Um, it was, I think, a lot of me getting sober was, I'm tired of disappointing everybody. And most importantly, I'm tired of disappointing myself. And I'm tired of disappointing my daughter. Because she was with my parents and they're old. And, and every time I would leave her, she would cry and scream, and it hurts. It hurts. Like, I seemed like a bad mother, and I probably was, but I didn't know. I didn't know how to be a mom. I didn't know how to be a human being. I didn't know. And I'm not like full blown recovery. Like I did work 12 steps. I don't anymore. I just live a normal life. And to me, it's like, I can't believe I did that shit. To me, it's more like, how did this happen? Like, how could you do that? But I've always been the black sheep of my family. And, now they can be proud of me too. Like,
now you're a bright light. If I could
they're,
be cheesy.
they're not, it is what it is now.
Yeah.
I don't care anymore. And I don't care what other people think. I have to not worry about that, because when you worry about what other people think, that's what gets you like fucked up pretty much. So, living life, trying to do better, trying to be better.
That's inspiring. I had no idea when I reached out to you that was, that this was your story. I had no clue at all. So to, one, to see you and to start off and see you and you look great, and then you start to tell a story and realize it was so, so recent, that you've recovered, and this is your outlook that what the hell was that? Just seems so, I don't know. It seems so like positive, and, feels good for me to see you like that and hear you talk like that.
I just hope maybe somebody needs to hear it. Maybe I'll inspire somebody else. Maybe, you never know. That's my story. It's what I went through. And if you want to judge me, then go ahead. But I on you than yourself, honestly. So I've done enough of that in my life, and I'm cool with me now.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. So that's me in a nutshell.
Well, we went through like a lot of stuff that I want to talk about. The last thing I do like to do before I end this, you know what's coming, right? We're gonna pull out the yearbook here, and we're gonna see Monica from our 2001. Let's see. The wet hair.
The wet hair. It was always gelled. I don't know that it was always wet, but it was always gelled.
You got track and field for 9th grade.
I threw javelin in 9th grade.
Okay.
Yeah, I was actually pretty decent till I did something to my elbow. Yeah.
Your quote is pretty interesting. You have an actual quote here. Do you remember your quote?
Something about, yeah, I don't know. It was a Dr. Seuss quote.
Yes, it is a Dr. Seuss quote.
Yeah.
You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes, you can take yourself any direction you choose.
Yeah. Interesting.
What's that from? What Dr. Seuss is that from?
Heard it somewhere, and I was like, I like that.
It is good. Thanks to God, Mom, Dad, Michael, and Marianne for always being there for me. Loris and Simon?
Philly, that I went to go to her house every weekend.
Okay. And the rest of my friends, I love you. And that's it. No initials. You just kind of say the rest of my friends. Just Loris and Simon.
Simon's my cousin. All right. Yeah.
Because you jumped around to so many different groups, you just couldn't really name anyone.
Yeah. I guess special enough. I don't know. I'm not saying that. Everybody's special. Everybody that I hung out with, I guess impacted me somewhat in my life. But